Welcome to Skills to Pay Your Bills. I'm your host, Don Moragne, and this is a special segment called the Wealth Zone University. As you know, our mantra here in the Wealth Zone University is to change your mind about money so you can change your financial future. Over the last couple of segments, we've been talking business, and we're going to continue that today because I've got a special guest who you definitely want to get to know. My guest not only is an excellent businesswoman, she's an attorney, but she's also one of those people who knows international commerce better than most. I'm going to introduce you to Sheila Khatri. Sheila, hello, and welcome to the Wealth Zone University.
Thank you, Don.
Sheila is going to take a minute and just tell you about her background and who she is. And I would try and do that for her, but why should I speak for her when she's right here, right? So Sheila, tell us who Sheila Khatri is. Tell us what Sheila Khatri does well. Please, take your time.
Thank you, Don.
Go.
So basically, I founded a company in 2005 called Moti International. And we founded this company when the state of Maryland was interested in opening up their trade office in India. We were awarded the contract, and that's what got me started on this business of helping companies do business development in India. Our focus is on companies that don't yet have a presence, but who are interested in expanding their market in India.
In India. Now, are you a business developer? I mean, who is Sheila Khatri, and what makes you qualified to do business development?
Well, that's a very interesting question. We specifically, when we started the office, we specifically hired folks and expanded our network in terms of the who's who in the zoo in India. And we focused on several markets, and that's sort of expanded. A lot of technology sectors were our focus, like biotech, IT, aerospace, defense. And we got to know a lot of the organizations, the associations, key leaders in these industries, and they've really helped us expand our network so that when we have a client who's interested in doing something, we can steer them and encourage them in the right directions. We've been able to get our clients into some of the largest companies in India. In fact, our biggest deal that we helped facilitate was with a Fortune 100 company get their first contract in India, which was an airport concessions contract.
Wow.
It was a 7-year, $100 million contract, and they've since gone on to do a lot of other deals without us, but that's our focus, is we help companies get their foot in India.
You got them started. Now, the name of your company is Moti International, and Moti has a meaning in your Indian language.
To me.
Yes. What does Moti mean?
So Moti has several different meanings.
Okay.
It's the name, it's what we called our grandmother.
Okay.
And my grandmother was very dear to me, and she played a pivotal role in shaping me as an entrepreneur and to be able, the daughter of an immigrant, to hold on to my dreams and to make my dreams a reality. She infused me with that strength.
That's fantastic.
It also means large, and it also means pearl. India has several different dialects, and in one dialect it means a pearl, and in another it actually means sort of large. So I like the idea of the world is your oyster, and it's a big world out there.
I like that. I like that. So Moti International then is a venue where, let's say I, as a business person, want to become involved in India in some kind of commercial aspect. I come to Sheila Khatri and Moti International, and I say, Sheila, get me into India. What do I do? How do I start my relationship with you and your international business development firm?
Well, the first thing we like to do with clients is to find out what they've already done with India. Have you identified a potential client in India? Have you just heard there was a great opportunity and you wanted to explore the market? We like to know what you've already done. We take that as our starting point. We learn about what your strengths are and in terms of how we can translate that into India. And then we incubate you, basically. You have boots on the ground with our law firm, with our company, and we affiliate with law firms, we affiliate with accounting firms, we affiliate with marketing firms, and we're able to plug our clients in where they're necessary. But we try to facilitate deals. So if we know what you're offering and we're able to identify somebody in India who wants what you're selling, and we work to connect you.
Now, you spend a considerable amount of time every year in India, developing your resources, but also doing what you call on-the-ground work for your clients. And so tell us, when you go to India, I'm your client. What are you doing for me when you're
Oh,
there?
gosh. Well, for each client we have, we actually assign an individual in India to work on your particular case. And so that individual will be out there laying down a strong foundation, visiting companies, doing pitches on your behalf per your suggestion, visiting companies per your suggestion or per our suggestion. They'll be trying to get you speaking engagements if you're interested in connecting with a wide audience in India. They will be basically lining up potential clients and getting them familiar with your company. When I'm in India, we work at a very high level as well. And I have a great time when I'm in India, but there's a lot of networking, a lot of social events. For example, we were the guest of the chief minister in Haryana, and from that visit, we were actually able to help Montgomery College in Montgomery County make some critical connections, from which now Montgomery College is doing a teacher exchange with some basically technical colleges in India. So we work on a very high level as well. And so when I'm in India, I like to engage CEOs of companies, high-placed alumni from, say, the University of Maryland or from this region, and just develop a relationship so that if we ever need their assistance or they can refer us to an appropriate point of contact in India, we have that. India is a very heavy relationship-oriented place to do business, and just going in and asking for a meeting with someone can be challenging. But when it comes from a referral from someone who's known to that individual, it's much easier to get those meetings. So we try to lay a very high-level network as well as sort of our client's specific network.
Okay, so for you working with me, when you're in India, you're actually my front person, my mouthpiece. You allow me to then get access to these high-level individuals who you've built relationship and rapport with. And essentially, I don't really need to know anything except the fact that I want to have some kind of commerce in India, and what the drive is, and then you work it from that point on.
Correct.
Okay.
So we take what your strengths and weaknesses are, and we put them into India, and we pitch your strengths, and that's how we help develop business.
Fantastic. Now, but it also works the other way, coming this side from the ocean, Indian companies that want to come and have relationships or do business in the United States.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
That's accurate. So for the last couple years, where the economy's been a little shaky here in the U.S., we've noticed a number of Indian companies interested in acquiring assets. The valuations have been a little better for Indian companies that have been looking into the U.S. So we have been representing a number of companies that wanted to acquire or expand into the United States.
Okay. And so that essentially is you doing the same kind of front work and same kind of relationship building and everything else in the United States that you do in India. So essentially your year is basically making friends and marketing.
It's business development. And you know, in every country, so I can't just say India, but in every country, relationships are critical. And along with the relationship is that trust level that you have when you're signing a contract. You don't want to have to rely on the contract. You'd like to be able to trust your partner. And you need that level of trust to do business. And it's heightened in India, but it certainly exists here in the United States when you've got a foreign entity that wants to sign a lease. You know, there's no credit history, there's no background. Who is this individual? And sometimes I have to put myself forward and say, you know, this is somebody that I know, that I've worked with in India, it's a good company in India, and to sort of lend my name to encourage that landlord perhaps to agree to make a commitment to a new tenant. So relationship.
That's important. And business is really about relationships. And you have the ability to have relationships on dual continents. And you also have relationships in South Africa, I think you mentioned to me, right?
Correct. So we are expanding into South Africa. It may take another year or two before we actually set up a physical office. But we've had a number of clients call and say, we love your model and we want you to replicate it basically in South Africa.
That's fantastic. We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, but I want to come back and I want to talk specifically about business development from your perspective, why that business development may or may not be different on an international level than it is on a local level. And then I want to get the audience to get to know more about you, Sheila Khatri herself, okay?
Thank you.
We're going to take a break in a couple of minutes. What I want you to do is don't touch that dial, because the next segment is going to be even more interesting than the first segment. But I also want you to remember that you're in charge of your financial future. If you just stick to the financial wellness strategy, you'll be in good shape, and then we can start building wealth. Hold on, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial. Bye.
Hello, I'm Sheila, the coolest 8-year-old kid you will ever meet. My grandpa Don gave me so much money last year, my piggy bank could no longer hold one more dollar. He told me to watch Skills to Pay the Bills on Channel 10 and learn about the real secrets of money. Then he told me to watch Egyptian Secrets on Channel 10 to learn how to stay healthy and well. You can be cool and healthy just like me by watching Skills to Pay the Bills and Rock Your Block on every week on Channel 10.
Welcome back to Skills to Pay Your Bills. This is a special segment called Wealth Zone University, and I'm your host, Don Moragne. When you left, we were talking about international business development, and we were talking with our special guest, Sheila Khatri, who's the CEO and principal of Moti International LLC. We're going to continue our conversation because we have a lot to talk to Sheila about, especially about how international commerce works and how she makes it much easier for those of us who are in the United States to begin that process, and how she just takes the whole Atlantic and just makes it one big business cycle for us. I'm loving it. Sheila, on everybody's mind in business in this area is government contracting, because the vast majority of people in this area are government contractors. And the one thing on all of their minds is sequestration. Has that impacted any of the clients that you have, and has it impacted Moti International? Give us some idea of that from an international commerce perspective.
Well, it's interesting. Everyone complains about sequestration, but it's actually driving some clients to me.
Okay.
I've recently had a few new clients that are government contractors, not super large, but not small either, in that $30 to $60 million range.
Good range.
It's a good range, and they're looking at expanding their business, and they're a little apprehensive about relying solely on the federal government to grow their business because of sequestration, and not knowing when we're going to have a budget and when the federal government's going to buy their goods and services. And they are looking around the globe, and India is one of the places that they're looking at, saying these are the services that we provide here in the United States. What are the opportunities for us in India?
Okay. And so when these government contractors come to you, I get the impression that they're not your normal client. They're kind of brand new to the international commerce and to you. Do you have anything special that you're doing with them to kind of acclimate them to international commerce, to kind of bring them along?
We are.
Okay.
Basically, Moti acts as an incubator for companies that want to expand into India.
Oh, great.
So we provide all sorts of informal training on how do you conduct yourself in India, maybe understanding that business might be done in India. For example, in India, we don't use the word million as a common number. We have lakhs and crores that
Crores,
describe
right.
very large numbers.
Crorepati, right?
Crorepati is, yes, millionaire.
I read her newsletter, that's why I was smiling.
So when you're dealing with a potential client and they're talking in a number unit that you've never heard of, that's not good. There's a 10.5-hour time difference between the United States and India. So
Wow.
when you're taking someone to India for the first time, you want them as familiar and comfortable with sort of the nomenclature, with some of the customs, with how people do business in India.
So in addition to you making the first entree for me as your brand new client into India, you're actually teaching me or getting me used to what the norms are, what the traditions are, what the cultural way of doing business is. So
Yes.
that's even more intricate than just doing business. That's actually learning what the country says is not acceptable in terms of relationships with other people.
It's critical when you're
Wow.
trying. At the heart of all business is relationships, and people need to feel that you understand them, their needs, and part of that is their culture. So, for example, Indians tend to work on Indian Standard Time. They tend to take a little bit longer than we might. So, if someone says they'll get back with you within 2 days, we advise our clients to say, oh, give them maybe 2 weeks before they get back with you, and budget for it internally in that way. So little things like that, just to keep you from getting frazzled and a little bit annoyed with the person that you might be seeking to do business with.
I like that Indian Standard Time. And so what kinds of other cultural things, just a couple, are things that you really have to pay attention to as my point person in India? I would imagine that you said that there are people who you have to know and approach in India, and I guess you have to approach them in a certain manner. Is that accurate?
Correct. So India is very much, I would say about 80% of Indian companies are owned by families, and that includes the larger companies and the ones that are publicly owned.
Okay.
And a lot of the Indian decision making is done from the top down. So unlike, say, in the United States where you might have a team of folks putting together an idea and sort of float it to the top, it works often in the reverse in India. So in knowing who you need to talk to within an organization and being able to get access to the highest levels to conduct a pitch or to have a soft discussion and say, hey, I've got this client that you might be interested in hearing about that can solve this problem that you're working on, help. As opposed to if you start at the bottom and try to work your way up, which is often very challenging. So little things like that. And some companies, even though they're fairly large, the most senior member of the organization may have retired. He may not actually step foot in the office, but he actually may make all the decisions.
Okay.
And then trying to get an invitation to build that relationship of maybe having dinner at their home, or maybe you inviting the whole family out to dinner, you know, in with you hosting, being able to have access to that. Usually it's a patriarch, and being able to build that relationship and that trust, which is usually the foundation of doing a business, doing a transaction.
That can be extremely daunting. Absolutely. I can think of, I mean, just for us, getting through the gatekeeper is a big problem. So getting to the patriarch must be it's something that we can't even fathom. And so you actually spend your time in India then. Obviously, you have relationships from when you've been to India a million times. But when you're there, you're actually cultivating these existing relationships and new relationships so that you can then be that vanguard for me.
Absolutely. Okay. And the nice thing about India is they're looking to buy lots of goods and services. The country itself is modernizing. So they need just about everything from healthcare to building materials to clothing. I mean, they're looking for the full range of services that we can provide. So I do think that Indians are very open and receptive to wanting to work with American companies, which helps.
So that international commerce then, so they're looking to import from us all kinds of goods and services to improve the quality of their lives.
Correct. There's some things that are more attractive. So we talk about clothing. India manufactures a lot of clothing, but we are seeing a lot of the luxury high-end goods opening up shops in India, you know, pretty fast and ramping up. So yeah, so there's a full range of goods and services that Indians are looking to acquire from us.
Wow. And so business development on the international scale is really about knowing what's a good phrase? How to maneuver yourself while you're in country. Exactly.
Correct.
And then when you bring an Indian company to the United States, do you have the same considerations at the same levels, or how does that work?
It's a little different. I find that Americans need less of that relationship pre-willingness to do a transaction. So there's a little less of that, and quite frankly, I find...
Wait. Is that why I, as a patriarch, don't get wined and dined by you? Is that what you're telling me? That's not going to happen again, okay?
Fair enough.
Hey, you've all heard it, all right? Go ahead, I'm kidding you.
I thought we were going out for a drink after
Not
this.
anymore.
So we tend to find there a little bit less of that. And also, I find that a lot of the young folks that are doing business development in India have actually been educated in the U.S. So they are a little more sophisticated about our culture than, say, some of the folks that I deal with in the United States who have not visited India before and taking them there for the first time.
Good. Now, we talked earlier, and you said that you had actually set up an office in Bangalore for the state of Maryland. And so now we're not talking about individual companies, we're talking about government agencies wanting to do business overseas. Tell us how that came about and why would Maryland want to be in India?
Well, we have a number of Maryland companies that do a lot of international work. And one of the complaints that we're hearing about them, and the state was hearing about them in their Department of Economic Development, was they weren't seeing a lot of results with their agents or distributors. And when you do international business, it's very common to hire an agent or distributor to promote your goods and services in country. But because of a lot of cultural clashes, because of a certain level of loyalty and pre-existing relationships some of these agents and distributors may or may not have had, Maryland companies were not having good experiences. And the state of Maryland decided, as a service to Maryland small businesses, they were going to have a trade office based in India. We had 5 folks out of our Bangalore office, and our job was basically to work with the Maryland companies that were sent to us from the Department of Economic Development and to assist them in whatever way they needed.
So let me just stop for 1 second. So Maryland had a problem in India, and they went and got the superhero Moti International to get them out of trouble. Is that, in essence, am I right about that?
I like the way you put it. I like the way you put it.
Okay, so remember that, folks. We got a superhero there. So go ahead. So you went and you set up an office in Bangalore with them, Super Moti.
So we were doing a wide range of things. Say you were interested in hiring an agent or distributor, and that's the way you wanted to go. We would do due diligence just to make sure this person pans out. Sometimes we would send our staff with a little camera and check out the physical office, sort of being sleuths. Other times we were trying to help identify the right points of contacts for some of our clients that wanted to do pitches in India. Sometimes they would hire us directly, and we would then in turn hire an individual to act as their basically marketing salesperson on the ground in India, which the folks back home could then help sort of direct and encourage them to do X or Y representing that client.
That's great. Now I want to go back to one of the things that we talked about earlier. Moti can help government contractors gain access to markets in India.
Correct.
And so, again, with this area being so permeated by government contractors, what should a government contractor be thinking about or learning about in terms of just thinking about going into the international market with any country, but India in particular, in your mind?
Well, with India, again, since India is looking to acquire lots of goods and services, pretty much any government contractor might have an opportunity in India, whether it's events planning, logistics management, whether it's providing cybersecurity, goods and services. There's a wide range of things. As you've probably heard, India does a lot of outsourcing. So a lot of our banking records or other sensitive information may be passing hands through India. And with cybersecurity a big concern, and U.S. companies being on the forefront of protecting our data, there's opportunities for these sorts of companies to get new clients in India.
Wow, okay.
So there's a wide range of goods and services that
Wow.
Indians are looking to acquire.
So an IT company, an events planning company, events management company, a security company, a telecom company, any kind of company essentially that has a commodity essentially to put in place, would that be safe? Was that just being too narrow?
Commodities. It
Okay.
can be commodities, but it's usually what we deal with is a little more sophisticated
Okay.
than sort of that area. But yeah. So if you work on a particular, let's stick with the cybersecurity perhaps, and there's a company in India that's looking to acquire a new system to protect their data, they may do a competition. They may reach out to 3 companies and say, okay, here, let's do a test. And to be able to talk to that company before that test is conducted, maybe to figure out what are some important issues, what might be factors in how they decide to make a selection. We can do a lot of that sort of soft research on behalf of our clients.
Okay. And you've got a, is it monthly newsletter that you send
We do
out
a
to clients?
monthly newsletter, yes.
Okay, that actually talks about what you do, and congratulations on the new clients that you just talked about.
Thank you.
And that's where I got Corey Pate from, right?
Corey Pate, yes.
Yeah. And additionally, she's got a blog, which is you're going to see on the screen once we get it scrolled. But Sheila, I want to thank you for taking time to come, introduce yourself to our audience, and share how important it can be to deal with Moti International, trying to get some business commerce in India.
Thank you, Don. It was my pleasure.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, I know you enjoyed this. Please contact Sheila if you want to become rich and famous, and the word is Kropati. Then you need to talk to her. And if you want to just become financially secure, stick with us. And I guess together we'll make sure that you're wealthy. Stay tuned. We're going to be back with more on business development. In fact, we're going to keep talking to women because we believe that women have a significant decision-making in terms of money, both in the marketplace and in the home place. But again, we are the Wealth Zone University. We're glad that you're watching and are part of our audience. Sheila, thank you for showing up and hanging with us. And we're going to see you soon. So remember, financial wellness, that's what we're striving to have. You take care. See you soon. Bye.